As of right now, right this minute, Jordan Love is now eligible to sign his new extension with the Green Bay Packers. And why hasn't it happened yet? What you doing, Russ? What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews, where I am your host, John Delray. Today, covering just a couple little tidbits of news, but then also just diving into the Packers' 8 signed UDFAs, exploring why each one of them was signed, what kind of profile do they bring, what have they done collegiately. Some certainly more productive than the others. Some definitely signed because of production, and others you could see because of trades. So we're going to dive into those 8. But before we get there, I do want to give a shout out to a few new Patreon members. So thank you so much to Swift Sales app, as well as Paul, for both joining at different levels of the Patreon. Keep in mind, if you're interested, that link is in the description to this video. We're doing an inaugural fantasy football league. Paul's going to be in there, but then we also are going to be doing monthly memorabilia giveaways once we hit a certain amount of people, all different autographed Packer stuff or just different memorabilia. So please consider joining, helping Claudia and I out as we continue to expand and make this a bigger part of our lives. Also, Swift Sales app, if you're out there, thank you for the message that you sent. It was very, very kind. We did very much appreciate it. So thank you. All right. So let's get to the news. 1, Eric Stokes, the Packers cornerback, is entering his 4th year in the NFL, and there may not be a 5th in Green Bay. Now, it, of course, is still certainly possible. I wouldn't be shocked at all. But it was announced today by Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network that the Packers are not exercising Eric Stokes' 5th-year option. Keep in mind, like I said, he's going into year 4. This would be for the year after the 2025 season. They had the choice there to pick up the option, but it would have paid Eric Stokes $12.7 million guaranteed in 2025. And I do still think the Packers really like Eric Stokes. He had such a promising rookie campaign before, maybe a slight step back sophomore year. I think that's pretty over exaggerated. And then the injuries began. He's appeared in just 12 games over the last 2 seasons. And so I really think the Packers, even though Matt LaFleur said just a couple weeks ago, like, the guy is now fully healthy, he's good to go. I think the Packers are just kind of taking the stance of, we do really like you. We want you to return to that, rookie level of production that you showed, that potential that you showed. But there needs to be some more reliability with these injuries. There needs to be just more consistency before ultimately we lock you into that 5th-year option. So Packers have declined it. I will not be shocked at all if he is retained in 2025 and beyond, but as of right now, it has been declined. Also of note, as I mentioned in the intro, Jordan Love. Now, May 3rd, we are 1 year since he signed his last extension. That means that per union rules, per NFL rules, he can now sign his next extension. I still think it's probably a couple weeks out. We know that Jordan's camp and the Packers have talked. Like, it's been reported a bunch. We know that it's occurred. So it's going to happen. I still think we're probably a couple weeks out, just as they're hammering out details. Last bit of news before we dive into the UDFAs, Alex McGough. He was the 3rd-string quarterback last year. The scout team quarterback also did some wide receiver stuff with the scout team last year based upon some player quotes. Well, apparently he's just going to play wide receiver now. Like, he played quarterback in the USFL. He played quarterback with the Packers. Well, now he's going to be a wide receiver for the Packers. On the Packers website, it has officially changed his position from quarterback to wide receiver. So now looking at Michael Pratt also being there, quarterback, Sean Clifford, of course, behind Jordan Love. Maybe this is the best shot that he still has a chance to crack the roster, but it does appear as though it's pretty long odds, regardless of what position he goes to. So, the topic of the day, let's discuss UDFAs. Now, why does it matter? So many of these guys are just bottom of the roster fodder, maybe practice squad, futures contracts, that kind of thing. The likelihood that we're going to hear many of these guys' names during a regular season game, not high. Right, and we can all acknowledge that, but the Packers have a pretty insane streak going. 19 consecutive years they've had a UDFA on the 53-man roster. certainly, I didn't personally look this up, but like that's got to be the longest in the NFL. If it's not the longest, it's got to be darn close. Andrew Brandt, other people who have been close to the inner workings of the Packers have talked before about how the Packers are actually a preferred destination for a lot of undrafted agents because they know in Green Bay, the players are actually going to get a fair shake. They're going to get snaps. They're going to get a chance in Green Bay. They've shown it again and again throughout their history. Even last year, there was Emmanuel Wilson, Malik Heath, Brenton Cox Jr., all UDFAs who made the roster. Caleb Jones, he's a UDFA. Even going back farther in history, there are some major contributors who were UDFAs. Guys who were not drafted, who still wound up contributing and went on to have Packer Hall of Fame careers. Cullen Jenkins, not too long ago. Or how about John Kuhn was certainly one, or even Tramon Williams. So while the chances aren't great, these are guys who still ultimately someday could impact the roster in a really big way, or even just this year, they might still be there. So keep in mind as well, today we are looking at the 8 individuals who were signed immediately following the draft by the Packers. Going on this weekend is their rookie camp. So the draft picks are there, the UDFAs are there, the guys who are just there on tryouts are going to be working out as well. And of course, this list could change if they decide to sign one of the tryout guys and let one of these guys go, or, there could be shuffling here is what I'm saying. So with rookie camp going on, this is subject to change, but these are the 8 that were signed immediately following the draft. So who are those 8? And here I call them the Longshots, Russ Ball's favorites. And why would they be Russ Ball's favorite? Because they're the cheapest possible players you can get on the roster. So we're looking at Peter Bowden, the long snapper out of Wisconsin, James Esther, the defensive lineman out of Northern Illinois, Jarvan Howard, the running back out of Alcorn State, Donovan Jennings, offensive lineman out of USF, Trent Jones, the offensive lineman out of Michigan, Rodney Matthews, the defensive tackle out of Ohio, Messiah Winson, tight end out of Arizona State, and Railand Goforth, the linebacker out of Washington. So I'm going to give you some good, some bad, some backgrounds, just basically what I could find on each one of these potential future Packers. And we're going to stay in the state of Wisconsin for our first one. Yeah, some of you get your wish. I got to talk about a long snapper. In one of the most long snappery photos ever, there is Peter Bowden. But he is a San Diego native. And look, I got to tell you, he's probably one of the best chanced guys of these UDFAs to actually make the roster. Matt Orzik, signed last year to a multi-year deal, was supposed to be the solution to the Packers' long snapper woes, and then he wasn't. He was still remarkably inconsistent. It's just getting to be cursed like in Green Bay. And maybe Peter Bowden is the guy that could break the streak. He's one of the country's best long snappers, at least collegiately. He was Dane Brugler's top long snapper, the only one who is even given a draft grade of 7th round / priority UDFA. Everyone else was just UDFA. So, I mean, bringing him in does make a world of sense. He's 6'2", 239 pounds, and he's very well decorated. In 2020, he was academic All Big Ten. 2021, academic All Big Ten. 2022, Patrick Mannelly Award semifinalist. And if you're wondering, the Patrick Mannelly Award is the award that goes to the country's best long snapper. So he's a semifinalist in 2022. 2023, he was a finalist for the award, although he never won the award. Now he gets the greatest gift of all. He got a Packer jersey with his name on it. I got to tell you, when looking at Bowden, he is special teams through and through, and you got to respect it. Like, dude found his job and then just stuck with it. In his collegiate career, he's a long snapper for 39 games. And in those 39 games, he branched out to offense a little. He logged 3 career offensive snaps. Everything else came at long snapper. Beyond that, and interestingly enough, I'm not sure everything that goes into PFF grading long snappers. I'm sure the snap placement has something to do with it, the actual blocking after the snap, et cetera, et cetera. But it does feel worth noting that, at least according to PFF, his grade has gone down each of the last 3 years. 3 years ago, it was 76, then 74, and then most recently, 66. So just something to keep an eye on. Taking a look at UDFA number 2, now we're taking a look at James Esther, defensive lineman out of Northern Illinois. I got to tell you, sometimes, especially when looking at UDFAs, you read a guy's profile and you're like, man, I really hope that football works out for them, because if it doesn't, there's not a lot else going on in their life by all accounts. James Esther, I think this guy's going to be just fine, even without football, because reading this profile, he's got some accomplishments. Just listen to these accolades. Okay, he's got a bachelor's in communications. That's already completed. He started 43 games in college, logging 121 total tackles and 20 tackles for loss. But it's the off-field stuff, besides just the degree, that really matters here. And there's different sources on this, okay? He was either a 3 or a 4-year captain in college. Even the school's website seems to conflict in itself in the writing. So he was either a 3 or a 4-year captain. Okay, and I noted in the Packers draft facts just about the rookie class how they prioritized captains this year. Well, here's more experience for that. But then also 3-time all-conference choice player, 2-time team MVP, including the last 2 years. He also is a semifinalist for the National Football Foundation Scholar Athlete Award and the Campbell Trophy, of which, if you don't know what the Campbell Trophy is, don't feel ashamed. I didn't know either. But this is what I got from Wikipedia. The William V. Campbell, formerly the Vincent DePaul Dratty Trophy, is awarded by the National Football Foundation to the American college football player with the best combination of academics, community service, and on-field performance. It is considered by many to be the academic Heisman and is nicknamed as such. But in addition to being talked about for that, a semifinalist for that, he also was academic All-MAC honors in 2023, and he's also on the field incredibly reliable. He's sitting in a streak of 39 consecutive starts, 3 entire years that he has not missed a start. Not gonna lie, kind of pulling for the dude just based on those accolades alone. On the field, though, reason why I listed him as a DL instead of DT is because he does have some outside versatility. In high school, he played both outside and in, so edge and DT. But even last year at Northern Illinois, about 20% of his snaps came on the outside. And his weight has kind of spanned throughout the draft process, depending on where you look and get your sourcing. He's been either in the low 290s to the high 290s, never quite getting over, getting into the mid 3s. So is certainly some room there to where he could play edge, tackle, versatility. We'll see what exactly they ask of him, and we'll find out soon enough. UDFA number 3, that's Jarvan Howard, the running back out of Alcorn State. And again, Brian Goodkunst, you are showing your wants, buddy. 5'9", 219 pounds, just like Marshawn Lloyd. That is not the tallest running back in the world, but he is thick in certain places. And I got to say, even with that size, he still ran a 4.5 240. He spent 3 years at Syracuse as a backup before transferring to Alcorn State, where he eventually became the feature back. This last season, he's coming off a season where he gained 764 yards, 494 of which were after contact. Howard earned first team all SWAC honors. But at least statistically, his 2022 is even better. He got over 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. It should be noted, too, that during this last season, Howard did add a new element to his game. In his previous 4 years, spanning time between Syracuse and then his 1 year at Alcorn, he had 18 catches. But then this last year, his second year at Alcorn State, all of a sudden they decided to start throwing him the ball. Because while in those first years, he caught all 18 targets. It was 18 targets, 18 catches. This last year, he got 36 targets, doubled his target count in 1 year alone, and he caught 31 of them. Also, in the rookie sheet, in the rookie video, we talked about Marshawn Lloyd and his elusiveness score, which was one of the best in all of college football. Well, Howard's is 100 this last year, which is still one of the better averages in football. I will note, he needs to get better at pass blocking. His grade this past season from PFF, 28.8 on 68 pass blocking snaps. That ain't going to fly in Green Bay. Next up, Donovan Jennings, the offensive lineman out of the University of Southern Florida. He spent 6 years at USF, which led to him making 45 career starts. And he's very similar to first-round pick Jordan Morgan in a bunch of different ways. Nearly all of his college experience was at left tackle. And yet, he still profiles inside by some. In fact, over 3,000 snaps were at left tackle. The only time that he played really anywhere else was at right guard during his second season, where he got 112 snaps in. In spite of being so tackle oriented, Jennings, this draft cycle, as he was being told, like, hey man, you might go inside in the NFL, he took it upon himself to start working as a guard and played there during his offseason bowl games. But even considering him at tackle, just like Morgan, he's got good agility. He's got a RAS of 8.93 as a tackle, and he's got 33-inch arms. So, like Morgan, he does have a chance to stick outside. But if he goes in, his RAS there, 9.65. He's ultra athletic, he's very experienced, and he's more agile than strong. This is a Packers lineman all the way. I've referred to Jennings thus far as like the Packers' 8th round pick because it's clear they prioritized him in the UDFA thing. Plus, they had him in for a top 30 visit. Like, this is someone the Packers were genuinely interested in. They gave him $100,000 guaranteed salary on top of his $10,000 signing bonus. And that's not normal for the Packers to give that much money to UDFA. So they might really have something here. Per Dane Brugler, sounds like Jennings' biggest problem is just needing to add strength. This is the exact quote from the Beast from Dane Brugler. It says, overall, Jennings displays enough foot quickness and hip flexibility in pass pro, but he must refine his hand placement to establish leverage and strengthen his anchor to match up in the NFL. Yep, still sounds pretty Packersy. And continuing on with our vegetables draft class. Now we're looking at Trent Jones, the offensive lineman out of Michigan. Dude predominantly played right tackle at Michigan, but there's significant projection to move him inside in the NFL. Like, he meets a couple of the tackle thresholds, but I couldn't find anything out there saying that he should stay outside, unlike Jordan Morgan or Donovan Jennings. And frankly, there's not much conversation about Jones out there at all. But at 6'4", 305 pounds, the Packers obviously believe there's something there at least to work with, even if it is just traits. Because prior going to Michigan, Jones was a 4-star recruit. It just never really came together for him. Over his years in school, he was utilized a lot as Michigan's 6th offensive lineman or their swing tackle. He even came out like in their 6th offensive lineman formation. He was the guy who came out. He technically, per Packers.com, got 7 starts because they started the game in a 6 offensive lineman formation. When looking at his PFF profile, he did seem to do better as a pass blocker than a run blocker, and he only gave up 3 sacks and over 700 pass blocking snaps over the last couple of years. All 3 of those sacks came in 2022. And, even though he doesn't have a ton of collegiate production, he's obviously smart. He was named academic All Big Ten all 4 years of his college playing career. Next up, we're talking Rodney Matthews. And, let me just say here, if you just punch Rodney Matthews, even spelled like it's spelled, with just 1 T, into Google, you think it's the Packers' new UDFA signing that comes up, right? It's not. It's not. Because there was a guy who was on The Bachelor in 2021 who happened to be a college football player. And you could just imagine the surprise in this household when you see all of the headlines about this dude being on The Bachelor and 29 years old. And I'm going, this? No, it's not. There was a good amount of momentary shock here for a while. And I got to say, too, like, finding info on UDFAs, kind of hard to do sometimes. These are not guys that have a lot of draft profiles written about them. Gets even harder when the only profiles out there are about his bachelorette appearances. And by the way, in case you're wondering, no, the 29-year-old Rodney Matthews did not win the show. As for Rodney Matthews, the Packers actually signed. He's 6'1", 311 pounds, was a captain last year at Ohio. He credits his son and his family for basically like teaching him balance, teaching him what matters most away from the field. There's a whole article put out by Ohio talking about how he's a captain on and off the field because he knows that his family needs him. And when football time is done, he goes home, he plays catch with his son. He spends time at home. On the field, Matthews has seen his PFF grade rise each of the last 3 seasons, that he's been a full-time starter. And he is very much, unlike Esther, we talked about earlier, who's got some outside-inside, Now, Matthews is very much a defensive tackle. The vast majority of his snaps come in either the A gap or the B gap. Per Packers.com, over the last 4 seasons, he registered 71 tackles, 28 of them solo, 14 and a half tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 passes, defensed, an interception, and a forced fumble. That interception, by the way, came on a tipped pass, and he's got some quotes out there that are really cool, where he talked about as the whole team swarmed around him as he made that interception. It was really cool because he felt like he had 2 families that were loving him that day, his family at home and then his family of the team. I just thought that was really cool. Next up, tight end Messiah Winson. Yeah, big dude, 6'7", 259 pounds. He projects to fill in more so as an inline blocker more than anything else. I've been referring to it as kind of the Mercedes Lewis role. Maybe that's going to be him again. Productivity in college was not exactly his strong suit. He started his collegiate career at Missouri before transferring to Arizona State for his final 2 years. In those 2 years, the 2 years combined, he logged 21 catches, 15 of which came in 2022. 2023 was, again, not exactly productive. And look, I don't want to be dismissive here, but even if you go look at his pass blocking grades or his run blocking grades, PFF kind of grades him out to be like average to below average. So just call him even like a blocking expert or one of the best blocking tight ends, I can't even say that that even feels particularly accurate per what I found out there. And then you look at the production from a receiving standpoint, and there's not exactly a lot there either, but he has a very big body at 6'7", 259. The Packers truly, and I'm very genuinely not trying to be dismissive, but the Packers truly just must see some traits here that they absolutely love and something that they at least wanted to bring in so that they could see what they got. And the last one of the day, Railand Goforth, the linebacker out of Washington. We talked a bit in mock drafts, day 3 videos about Washington Husky Ulufashio and how he could make a lot of sense for the Packers at off-ball linebacker depending on how the draft falls. Well, they didn't get him. Instead, they got his teammate in Goforth. And in case you're wondering, that picture, it's actually from his LinkedIn profile. I just thought it was awesome that it was so easily accessible, so I took that one rather than him in his jersey. He spent 4 years at USC before jumping to Washington for his final season, where he helped the Huskies get to the national championship. And here's the thing. Goforth is a very fun player. Like, he's aggressive, he's athletic. You see traits, but in the greatest pet peeve in the football field of mine, he's not exactly the best at tackling. Both of the last 2 years, his missed tackle rates were over 20%. And over the last 2 years, even in coverage, the QB ratings that he's given up, 113. 122. But on the bright side, he has also logged over 200 special team snaps in the last 2 years. And it's easy to see with like the athletic traits that he's got. He's got a RAS of 7.81. He ran a 4.62 40. It's easy to see with those athletic traits, with some level of aggression, if he can learn how to tackle with his special teams experience, he could very well carve out a niche and maybe sneak onto the roster. He does have some really nice highlight plays out there from his college days. So, it's at least conceivable that of all these guys, along with Jennings and maybe Bowen, he might be the next in line to potentially crack the roster if he can carve out a little niche. So certainly someone to keep an eye on, one that I'm definitely excited to watch as we actually get to the season. So there you have it. There are the Packers' 8 UDFAs. I do hope that you enjoyed this little profile on each. Information is a little bit more difficult to find out there for each one of these guys, but it was fun to go through it. I love learning about our new Packers, and I hope you did too, at least in this setting. So thanks so much for joining me here on Lombardi Time Brews. I will be back on Monday talking more content about the Packers. We'll see what comes up over the weekend, and if nothing does, I got a couple of ideas that we may pull out. Also, if it's of interest to you, I'm kind of debating whether I want to put this in the YouTube community thread or not. But every day, or at least close to every day, I'm not going to say every day, but I'm putting out more and more graphics on Instagram, Facebook, with just the news of the day for the Packers. So if that's of interest to you, go check out Lombardi Time Brews on Facebook or Instagram. And then, like I've been saying, join our Patreon, please. So, all right, thanks, everybody. Go have a great weekend. And as always, go Pack, go.